Hello everyone, this is part 2 of What If Naruto Was Trained by the Nine-Tailed Fox, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Naruto and Kyuubi sighed in unison, both equally bored. Kyuubi, stretched out on his side on the worn-down bridge, growled softly at his sensei's absence. Naruto, who was also stretched out, only on his back, joined him in growling soon after as he carefully carved a wooden kunai, with none other than the regular steel kunai. Sasuke, who was on the other side of the rickety bridge, furrowed his eyebrows in mounting anger, glancing slowly at the foxy pair. Sakura, nuzzling ever closer at his side, saw this and quickly joined in the glaring at Naruto and his partner, not exactly knowing why. Over the past few weeks, after Naruto's test, Team 7 had been participating in mission after mission, of all difficulties due to the lack of shinobi help in the village. Kakashi-sensei would pop up, with varying degrees of lateness, with an uncaring, "Yo," explain their mission, accomplish it, and head home, or to training, in Naruto's case. However, today their sensei must have been setting a record, for it had been long after his latest time and he was still nowhere to be found. Naruto quickly lifted himself to a sitting position, having finished his wooden kunai, and chucked it powerfully in Sasuke's direction. With quite a crack, it embedded itself into the rotting bridge railing, looking as solid and durable as ever. Sasuke, who had not moved in the entire ordeal, though was glancing at the wooden weapon with a twitch in his eye, looked to Naruto proudly. "Dope, can't even hit your target," he said arrogantly. Naruto snorted calmly as Kyuubi, now standing, growled softly. Sakura was stunned for a moment, but then gathered her wits. "Yeah, D last. You could have hit Sasuke-kun. Who said I was aiming at anything, bastard?" the vessel asked, ignoring Sakura. Sasuke glared. "D last. I don't know why I put up with the likes of you. Yeah, asses are made to bear and so are you," Naruto answered in an annoyed manner with a wave of his hand. As he said this though, he glanced away from Sasuke, down the bridge, to a figure making his way toward them. He walked quickly, with a propose, but void of emotion as the collar of his coat rose to cover half of his face, and a pair of dark shades obscuring the other. "Team 7. The boy asked, receiving either wondrous, annoyed, or calm nods from the team. "Godime-sama summons you." With that, he turned and without looking back made his way to Hokage Tower. Naruto shrugged and followed with a, "Wonder what the old hag wants," as Kyuubi hopped onto his shoulder with a thought of warning. Sasuke followed only a moment after, grudgingly, and Sakura followed Sasuke. As they arrived at Tsunade's office, the silent boy still leading, boisterous yelling could be heard from within. As the office door opened, the yelling only became more loud and arrogant, hurting poor Naruto and Kyuubi's ears. Inside, a rather feral-looking boy was objecting to some nonsense, and a small fearful-looking girl and disgruntled dog stood in the corner. Tsunade, chin placed haphazardly in the palm of her hand as she leaned on it, looked rather bored and used to this. "I will not lower myself to be on a mission with such incompetence," Tsunade offered lazily, not really listening to the feral boy's rant. "Incompetence. To do a mission with another team is like saying my team is worthless. I, asshole," Naruto shouted, his own voice easily overpowering the others as its owner stood stunned. "Your voice is annoying when you talk all arrogant like that. Shut the hell up." The dog Nin blinked in wonder. "Hey old hag, what's going on?" Naruto asked more calmly now. "I'm assigning teams 7 and 8 a mission, but it seems Kiba here objects," Tsunade answered, obviously relieved for it to be quiet again. "Of course I object. Like hell I'd want to be paired with such a weakling team," the boy, Kiba, said with a snort. Sasuke frowned. "Che, all I see on your team is a weakling, a mute, and a mutt," Sasuke said with a snort. Then directing his speech to Tsunade, "Why can't Team 7 do it alone, without them?" Tsunade sighed, massaging the bridge of her nose for the oncoming headache. "Because," she said forcefully, "this is a low B rank mission, so no rookie genin team," she glared meaningfully at the two boys, "could take this mission alone without their Junin instructors." At the confused look at the occupants in the room, save, it seemed, Naruto and Kyuubi, she sighed. Yes, your Junin instructors won't accompany you, they're off on their own missions at the moment. Their reactions were predictable, as Sasuke smirked evilly, Kiba doing the same, but more arrogant than evil. Sakura looked just as, if not more in her own way, evil and anxious. The girl, Hinata, and the dog, Akamaru looked slightly fearful for different reasons, and Naruto and Kyuubi looked excited to be traveling again, if just for a short while. Scooting a folder in Kiba's general direction, she said, "This is the mission outline and information. Kiba is assigned team leader. Now get out of my office." They all left quite hastily at the tone of her voice. For the 42nd, not that he was counting, time that day, Naruto sighed. He was, once again, carving another wooden kunai to add to his collection, though, since he had finished it hours ago, was now adding little dancing fox carvings into the side. He glanced about the forest they trekked through, for lack of anything better to do, and saw Sakura trying to strike a conversation about some plan to the silent Sasuke behind him. Akamaru followed behind the near-marching with arrogance Kiba, who had yet to explain their mission in detail to them, sighing his little doggy sigh just as much, if not more, than Naruto. Hinata was trailing close behind Kiba, eyes carefully plastered to the ground ahead, and Shino walked behind, staring intently at Kiba's behind for all Naruto knew. The vessel sighed again. "End this annoying noise, it tries my ears," Kyuubi said irritably from below Naruto, trotting beside him. Naruto rolled his eyes, and mocked the fox aloud quietly, then flipped him off. Hinata, the only one to hear the mocking, or perhaps the only one that even cared, blinked away from staring at the ground and looked behind her to the vessel. As Naruto vision fixed on her from the sudden movement, the shy girl started and quickly fixated her sight on the ground again, blushing red. With a shrug, Naruto quickened his pace to walk beside Hinata. Kyuubi, growling at being left behind, rolled his little red eyes and moved forward to walk beside Akamaru. "Hey, what's so interesting on the ground?" Naruto asked the Hyuga suddenly, staring at the ground along with her. Hinata started once again, and looked up, carefully averting her eyes from Naruto. "Oh, nothing, sorry," she said quietly, poking her fingers together. "What are you apologizing for?" "There's nothing to say sorry about," Naruto replied, squinting his eyes shut and hooking his fingers behind his head. "Sorry, guess you're right," she said with a small smile, then a blush. Naruto said nothing, and they walked in an easy silence for a short while. "So you're a Hyuga. That's pretty neat, coming from such a powerful clan," the vessel said, striking at a conversation once again. Hinata blinked at the speech out of the blue, and then nodded uneasily. I guess so," she answered unsurely. Naruto grinned a foxy grin. "So you know that gentle fist fighting style. You must be real good at it, being in the main family." "Not really," Hinata replied, idly wondering how he knew about the Hyuga fighting style and how she was in the main family. "I'm no good compared to a lot of the others." The vessel rose an eyebrow. "Who says you're no good? I don't see any other Hyuga going on B-ranked missions," Naruto said skeptically, looking around them to prove his point. "Yeah, but," Naruto glanced at her, and she hunched her shoulders up defensively, once again poking her fingers together. "But, my father says, and Kiba-kun," she trailed off, already knowing it was a pathetically weak argument. "So you believe everything your father and Kiba says? Sometimes people can be wrong, including me. But I know you're strong, because I know you train a lot." Hinata blinked, her head tilting in confusion. "Your hands have a lot of scars on them," he answered knowingly. Sure enough, Hinata's palms, knuckles and fingertips were badly scared, permanently discolored for the rest of her days. "With as tough as your hands are, you should be really strong, but you let other people's words get to you. Don't let them do that." Hinata, stunned, smiled a small smile, and nodded. "Okay, Naruto-kun." Then, as if picking the right moment, a large battle-worn fox bounded him from the underbrush, then adjusted its pace to walk at Naruto's side. Its head came clear up to his mid-thigh, though considering how short Naruto wasn't that high. "Sire, the enemy has made camp half a day ahead at this speed," it said, sounding like a series of yips and growls to Hinata. The Hyuga ideally wondered if Naruto's ears had always been pointed like that and why she hadn't noticed. They plan to break camp at dawn, and even if thou sleeps through the night, and take to the trees the next day, their capture shall be easy. My thanks, Niccolo. Naruto turned his gaze from the large fox ahead to Kiba, slowing to a stop. Oi, Kiba, he cried out, and the dog Nin grudgingly gave a rumbling, what? To the vessel. Naruto relayed the information the fox had given to the speculative Kiba. Dumbass. How the hell would you know that? Kiba barked a reply, looking back at the vessel as he also stopped. His eyes caught on the large fox, who was now purring under the rubbing of Hinata's hand. She giggled softly. At seeing this, Kiba snorted in an annoyed way, and judging from the from behind Naruto, Sasuke was equally annoyed, and looked away. Naruto looked to the fox again. Niccolo, you're dismissed. Unless you'd like to stay with the lovely Hinata-chan. The Hyuga blushed at this. As I would love to, the fox broke off into a long purr as Hinata rubbed his ears gently. I cannot. Mine mate and kittlings need food as of yet. I understand. Good luck with hunting, and if it helps, I spotted an old blind raven back down the road from here. The fox nodded and with a bow, leapt off into the forest. Hinata looked rather put off that the fox had left so suddenly, and Naruto was sorry that he had. Worry not, kittling, thought Kyubi to his cage with a smile, as his body trotted over to the Hyuga. I shall keep this goddess of caresses company. Naruto laughed, and Hinata looked at him oddly as Kyubi nudged her hand. Tenko says that he'll keep you company now. At this, Kyubi yipped aloud, and managed to nudge Hinata's hand onto his head. She laughed softly. Teams 7 and 8 found a good campsite not a long while later, and Kiba promptly began to bellow out orders, as the rest gathered wood and put up tents or such. Only then, when they had all finished their assigned duties, grudgingly, mind you, and sat around a small fire, did Kiba go into detail about their mission. Okay, shut up, the dog Nin said impatiently, though it was already quiet. Y'all know this is a search and destroy mission, right? Naruto and Hinata nodded, as Sasuke rolled his eyes and Sakura followed suit. Shino merely sat quietly. Yeah, well apparently the guy we're supposed to find is some kind of small-time drug lord who calls himself King of the Whites. Godime Sama, he stressed Sama, and Naruto frowned, is overly suspicious and thinks this Whites guy is giving his earnings to some missing nin to eliminate Campion. Apparently the missing nin he hired have been known for attacking Konoha, and Godime Sama wants to see off their earnings to hurt them as much as possible. And so she wants us to K the drug lord so the missing nin won't have the strength to attack Konoha anymore, Sasuke said, talking in an icy tone. Idiot, don't interrupt me, but yeah. It's pretty stupid, the missing nin will just find a new income and attack Konoha even harder out of vengeance. Stupid. We should just bomb the mission, it'll be a failure anyway. There's no hope for Konoha no matter what she does. Kiba was off though, as Naruto's rock-hard fist met the dog nin's face. He went flying off the log he had been sitting on from the sheer force of it, landed with a thud in the dirt. Naruto straightened, and looked down on the dog nin as he fought to scramble to his feet. Fool. If you won't complete missions for your village, you don't deserve to be called a ninja, the vessel said coldly as Kiba rubbed his aching jaw. With this said, Naruto turned on heel and made his way into the small tent not far away, Kyubi close behind. This gave many of the team something to think about. No one noticed Sasuke sneak away from camp that night. Camp was broken at dawn, and the teams took to the trees, and caught up with the drug lord's traveling party in literal leaps and bounds. The party consisted of a small caravan with horses and oxen pulling heavy, and rather suspiciously covered, wagons. Servants in bulky clothes and wrapped bandages to hide their idines scuttled about to obediently follow King of the White's orders as Teams 7 and 8 looked down at their target from their hideout in the trees. I say we just jump down there and give em a good ass kicking, Kiba said quietly to the group as Akamaru shook his head in disagreement with a yip. Che, what do you know? Akamaru's right, Naruto put in, as he listened to Kyubi's mental translation of Akamaru's speech. A full-out battle will get us nowhere and this guy has been known for disappearing when trouble brews. It would be better if someone hanged and sabotaged the caravan so they can't get away without at least losing their profit. In all of the mess, we can take out the King of the Whites quick and clean. So, who should go? As no one volunteered or rose their voice, Naruto sighed and a foxish scoff was heard from Kyubi on his shoulder. How about Shino? His bugs can take out a bunch of servants while he sabotages the caravan. Do you mind? Shino, having not spoken a word on the trip so far and not about to break this record, shook his head in a negative, and preformed the necessary hand seals for a henge. With a poof and a leap, he hit the ground a new boy, looking just like all of the other servants, and dashed off to the caravan. The teams quickly lost sight of him in the large crowd, but were sure he was doing his job as servant after servant dropped to the ground before they could even make a sound. Soon after, two of the wagons groaned, then tipped over before any of the remaining servants could save them, suddenly missing one or more wheel. Small swarms of chakra-eating bugs could be seen flying close to the ground as they went for another group of servants, obviously wondering why their comrades were falling, but never made it as a fire jutsu incinerated them as they flew. Seeing their plan go to the dogs, no pun intended, Team 7 and the rest of 8 leapt from their hideout to the ground below, dashing off to help Shino. Just as they found him, fortunately unharmed, however, a slow clapping filled the air, coming from King of the Whites as he looked down on the group from atop his own personal wagon. Ma, look at this, look at this. I was expecting a sabotage but a few scraggly weakling shinobi trying to destroy my business. It's laughable. And when I had such a nice little tip that shinobi were coming, this is absurd. Now we can't let you go about and destroy my profits, now can we? How did you know we were coming? Kiba growled loudly. King of the Whites just chuckled as a middle-aged man might do with a naive child. Why, I just told you, silly mutt. Kiba's growling became louder and many of the teams frowned. I had a tip. Finally fed up, the dog Nin bellowed a command to either Akamaru or the teams, it was never known, and charged forward toward the King of the Whites. But with an arrogant smile, and a snap of his fingers, a bang was heard and the entire area went up in foul-smelling smoke. As it cleared, the caravan, servants, and the King of the Whites were gone. The smoke, white and near solid looking as it had a shimmering quality, cleared slowly and many of the group slowed their coughing. For a few though, such as the dog, fox, and bug nins, continued coughing or squirming slightly. Damn, Kiba managed to curse with a sneeze, some S was in that smoke, my sense of smell. A sneeze. Damn it. He rubbed his poor nose vigorously, as Akamaru miserably rubbed his nose in the dirt to rid the scent. Shino stood off a ways, slightly more composed but his hands squirmed uncomfortably in his pockets as a few bugs darted from him, flying in a disoriented way. It was chakra charged, he commented dryly, talking for the first time in his discomfort. His brows furrowed behind his glasses as a few more bugs flew about, confused by the recent burst of chakra that seemed to still hang in the air. Naruto was frowning, nose scrunched sharply, as he kneeled next to Kyubi on the ground. The small fox demon was snorting every so often. Chakra charged indeed. It hangs in the air like a plague, confusing the silent one's insects. The smoke itself has the senses. Tracking this King of Whites shall be nigh impossible. Kyubi thought to Naruto with a snort, struggling to compose himself as he attempted to clear his nose. Naruto straightened with a nod, and looked to the rest of his teammates. Hinata and Sakura looked worried as Sasuke gazed at the group coldly. The blast must have been a distraction. The Whites guy couldn't have gone far but our senses are shot, Naruto informed them, scrunching up his nose a bit more, twitching uncomfortably. Hinata, do you think you can find a trail of some kind? Hinata blinked for a moment, then began poking her fingers as she hunched over, her shoulders nearly touching her ears. I don't know, Naruto Keikun. She averted her eyes to the ground. I'm not very good with my Byakugan. Sasuke scoffed loudly and Kiba frowned but amazingly remained silent. Naruto merely edged his head and gave a foxy smile after a moment. Says who? Hinata blinked, looked away and began to answer, but paused. She remembered. Who says you're no good? He had said, not even a day ago. Her eyes hardened after a moment, becoming determined. Okay, Naruto-kun. Performing the necessary seals, her eyes powered up and she looked about. Chakra seemed to hang in the air, still charging what was left of the smoke. Soon she found a trail of chakra hanging in the air, where the smoke had stuck to the caravan as it escaped and left a trail. With a nod to the others, she followed it, jumping from tree branch to branch. Sasuke scoffed as he followed, obviously displeased he was following a weakling. We'll lose the trail soon, this inept couldn't follow a road, he said aloud, seemingly to himself. Sakura seemed to agree with him. Naruto frowned but said nothing, Kiba running beside him. The vessel quickly noticed the faraway look in the dog Nin's eyes and large blue eyes blinked. What are you looking at? Naruto asked him, blinking again as Kyuubi snorted knowingly on his shoulder. He closed his eyes in an arrogant way, turning his head away as he snorted also. I never noticed Hinata had such a bosnia. He answered, looking back with a mischievous grin. Akamaru, riding atop the dog Nin's head, whined quietly with disapproval. Bosnia. Big ol', standard ninja issue ass. Naruto frowned at him. Lecherous mutt. Love looks not with the eyes but with the mind, Kyuubi commented dryly. Naruto blinked, wondering when Kyuubi gave advice on love. You do know Hinata can hear you, right? Naruto growled. Kiba shrugged nonchalantly, sparing a glance at Hinata who now had her hands in front of her from their view, most likely poking her fingers together, and her ears bright red, but diligently still following the trail. Who cares? That weakling couldn't do anything to me, Kiba retorted arrogantly. For all you know, Naruto's frown deepened, glanced at Kyuubi, and relayed to Kiba, thou callest me a dog before thou hast cause. But since I am a dog, beware my fangs. And with a snort in unison with Kyuubi, he sped up to run at Hinata's side. Kiba merely blinked at the fox Nin, stunned by the rather ironic analogy. They continued for a long while but inevitably they had to rest as Hinata's eyes were pushed to the limit. Not bothering to set up any kind of camp, the terrain below the trees was much too rough, teams 7 and 8 merely bunkered down in the trees' oversized branches. Hinata, exhausted, promptly went to sleep, despite the sun just lowering on the horizon. Fortunately, Shino was courteous enough to unpack her blanket for her and cover her with it. The rest of the teams also unpacked the bare necessities such as rations and blankets and began to hunker down. It's useless. At this rate, we'll never find the caravan. Naruto's slightly pointed ears perked at the sound of Sasuke's discriminating voice a few branches away, as he handed part of his rations to Kyuubi. Akamaru whined softly nearby. That weakling is probably leading us in circles. The vessel soon heard, much to his distaste, Kiba's approval. I wonder sometimes why she's still a ninja. Would make a better housewife. For the second time that mission, Kiba was knocked backward by the force of Naruto's punch. He was knocked off the branch as Naruto stole the place he was standing on, but the dog Nin grabbed another branch as he flew, hauling himself onto that one. Bastard. Again. Why the hell do you do that for? You're a part of a team, if you haven't noticed, asshole, Naruto growled, standing firm. Kyuubi clung to his shoulder, snarling silently. You're not the only one on it, and the rest of the members are just as valuable as you are, if not more. Hey, you got a problem how I run this team, Kiba retorted, then why don't you run it? The dog Nin growled back at Naruto for a moment, blinked, then smirked arrogantly. Akamaru crouched at his feet worriedly, tail lowered and looking up at his master uncertainly. I'll make you a deal, Fox spit. How about we fight and if you win you can run this team. If I win then you have to shut up for the rest of the mission and give me all of your pay for the next month. Naruto frowned, he had no desire to be team leader, but if it meant better team efficiency he would do it. He voiced his approval. Kiba's smirk widened. Fine then, Kiba said, as he activated his jutsu with a Shikyaku no Jutsu. And leapt forward. Akamaru, the nin dog hesitated, if only for a moment, and jumped forward to his master. He swallowed the pill thrown at him, and puffed into a copy of Kiba at the sound of Jujin Bunshin. The two flew toward Naruto, side by side with claws outstretched. Naruto deftly hopped to another branch, noticing out of the corner of his eye as Sasuke used the distraction replace himself with a simple Bunshin and slowly sneak away. He nodded to Kyuubi as he jumped from his shoulder. Kyuubi nodded back as his vessel threw a scroll to him and caught it in his mouth. The fox demon bound off through the branches to follow Sasuke as Naruto quickly activated a jutsu. Unfortunately, while doing this, the vessel had no time to dodge as Kiba and Akamaru Naruto quickly bounded to a branch, favoring his W as Kiba took a minute to gloat. Che, little fox spit, seems your partner abandoned you, the real Kiba called out, hands on his hips in a mocking way. Naruto merely chuckled as he stood. Dumbass, my partner never leaves me, the vessel answered, idly placing his hand on his thankfully still clothed belly. At least, don't hide behind my partners and let them do the work. But, if you want to play it that way, drifting off, Naruto's hands went through familiar seals, and quietly called the words, Kitsune Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. In an instant, a small army of identical foxes the size of large dogs puffed into existence, filling the trees. Kiba laughed at them. Idiot, you stick out like a sore thumb. Shaking his head with a small smirk, Naruto backed up along his branch and his image melted into that of a fox, the same as his, Kitsune Bunshin. Blinking for a moment, the dog Nin regained his composure and began to sniff out the vessel with what little sense of smell he had, Akamaru helping him. He was unsuccessful however, as all of the foxes and Naruto, being in the middle of summoning them, smelled of Bunshin smoke. He could hear chuckling, which seemed to be coming from all around him. I developed this jutsu just for this type of situation. Probably only a Hyuga could find me now. With that the foxes began to dance about, bounding from branch to branch. Finally fed up, Kiba bellowed a command to Akamaru and they attacked. Gatsuga, why you, King of the Whites managed to stammer out, scooting backward in his throne. The figure before him merely nodded. But why you're with that band of shinobi? You're here to K me, aren't you? The figure shook his head. It's a shame anyone could ever mistake me as a shinobi for that village, the figure said, with a snort. I was the one to warn you of our coming earlier. Under a henge, of course. I come to warn you that we're after you again. I'll try to dissuade them as much I can, but it's only a matter of time before they arrive. King of the Whites looked at the figure for a moment before smirking evilly. Disloyal to your village, eh? Good trait for this business. I suppose you want payment for your troubles. King of the Whites leaned forward and steepled his fingers, his middle-aged shoulders square and business-like. Of course. All I want is for you to give a message to the organization you hire. Tell them the last true Sharingan wants out of Konoha Gakka. Oh, and make sure not to recognize me when my team comes. Red Sharingan eyes flashed dangerously and King of the Whites was squirming in his seat once again. Unnoticed by both, slitted eyes more red and dangerous than Sharingan shone in the back of the dark hall. Leaves and bark flew through the air as Kiba and Akamaru performed Gatsuga between, and in some cases, through, the trees, taking out dozens of foxes in puffs of smoke as they did. They flew forward, a spinning drill aimed for one of the last groups of Kitsune clones. They heard a cry of, Hari Jizo. And Dog Duo was stunned by the impact, and backwards, he looked back up to Naruto, who was smiling foxily. Fine. You win. This was the image Sasuke returned to, silently dispelling his Bunshin to take its place. He frowned. It seems the D last, as he had started to refer to Naruto, gaining the habit from Sakura, was the team leader now. How annoying. His personal mission would be tons harder now, but he couldn't challenge the Fox Nin just yet. It was still too early and he was still too much of a mystery. No, it would be best to just sit back and analyze for a while. It would be worth it in the end. Naruto finally set Kiba down on the branch and the Kitsune clone was dispelled, letting Akamaru down also. Naruto looked back at the group, after using a jutsu to repair his clothes, and saw Kyubi sitting patiently with them, scroll in his mouth. With a smile, the vessel took the scroll, stored it and let the fox demon hop onto his shoulder. A kunai. He has given our lives for a kunai, was all Kyubi muttered in the back of Naruto's mind. The vessel quickly saw the analogy and mentally frowned. Now then, Naruto announced to the group as the last of the sun dipped over the horizon, we continue in the morning. Get a good night's sleep. When morning came, Naruto, Kiba, and their partners' noses were clear and healed enough to track again. They followed the trail through the rough terrain, unable to pick up the scent from above, and Naruto mentally noted that Sasuke's scent, faint and covered, followed the caravan's path. However, he stayed silent. The teams finally spotted the King of the Whites base, carefully hidden in the valley between two large, tree-covered hills. It was similar to Konoha. The buildings were just as packed and crowded, and nearly all of them had balconies extending to nowhere. Unlike Konoha, however, the buildings, so packed, were rammed up against the hills, piled on top of each other. Wooden pathways W up the hills to access the buildings higher up, and openings in the hills spoke of a network of caves. And there, at the far end of the valley, was a tall building rivaling the size of a mansion, built and shaped right in the hill. His scent leads to the mansion, Kiba declared, though not in his loud and arrogant tone this time. Naruto silently agreed with a nod. Hinata, Can you look and see if he's in there? Naruto asked, looking back at the Hyuga. She nodded, now determined, and activated her Byakugan. After a long moment of searching, she spoke up. He's in the throne room, she said, eyes still intent and staring into space. But he's heavily guarded. He has anything from thugs to low-ranking nin, I think, scattered through the castle. Hinata's eyes finally relaxed, the bulging veins shrinking to their normal size. Naruto sat silent for a moment, the teams waiting for his command. Okay, this is what we're gonna do. The king of the whites was, to be put quite frankly, becoming irritated. He had that wonderful little tip for him, that the ninja were going to come today, but geez. They could at least be on time. It was many hours after midday by now. He had followed his end of the deal, already sending his message to the missing nin, and he was expecting his tip to be accurate. The king of the whites frowned, glancing about his throne room at the numerous guards standing watch. None had so much as sneezed for hours now, so it was no wonder he was so bored. He sighed, leaning back into his throne. He toppled out of it, however, as his mansion quaked beneath him. He scrambled to his feet, looking about at his guards. What's going on? Get me a report. The guards merely blinked at him, and all puffed up in smoke. A single one was left, pink-haired and smiling mischievously. Pulling her eyelid down with her finger in an insulting manner, she stuck her tongue out at him. More puffs filled the hall, and the rest of the two teams appeared. How did you get in? King of the Whites cried wildly, eyes wide. My tip. His fear-filled eyes darted to Sasuke. Your tea. He would never finish though, as said shinobi drew a kunai and deftly flicked it at the drug lord. It found home in King of the White's neck, and he fell back, gurgling uselessly. The rest of the teams looked at Sasuke in either fear, amazement, or disgust. He scoffed. He is no use to us now, was his justification. Naruto frowned. Are the guards eliminated and evacuated? The vessel asked the group, and Sasuke and Shino confirmed silently. The explosive tags. Kiba and Hinata nodded. Naruto's frown grew to a smirk, outstretching his arm so Kyuubi could jump from the floor to his arm and crawl up to his shoulder. Then let's get the hell outta here. The teams quickly evacuated and positioned themselves in the trees, a few tied and unconscious guards below. Who would like to do the honors? Naruto finally asked, looking at his teams once more. Shino, in a rare display of outgoingness, silently volunteered by making a seal. Then, as if on a roll, he apparently decided to make the situation ironic. Boom. The afternoon sky lit up with oranges and yellows from the explosion. The trip back to Konohagaka was a short one, despite lugging back the ex-guards for interrogation. With little a word, the teams separated and went on their way, going home, or in Naruto's case, to the Hokage for his mission report. He took the usual route, via wall, ceiling, and hall, and was soon standing in front of Tsunade, whose hands were steepled beneath her chin while looking icily at Naruto. I do believe I gave the role of team leader to Kiba, she said calmly, though not in an angry calm. Naruto concluded it was more of a resigned, faint annoyance. Kiba was inefficient as team leader. We fought for the position and I won it. Godime sighed and massaged the bridge of her nose. I was expecting that. She frowned. And anything on our little traitor. Naruto smirked, dug a scroll out of his supplies pouch and unrolled it on one of the small clear areas of her desk. The scroll was blank, but after a few seals, colored ink seeped to the surface, creating a picture which began to move. It showed Sasuke's back mostly, but moved to different angles every so often, as if the imaginary cameraman moved about. They watched as Sasuke arrived at King of the White's base, creating a deal with him. The traitor failed to notice me throughout. Fool, Kyuubi stated from his perch atop a tall stack of papers on Tsunade's desk, conveniently just above the scroll. He snuck away while Kiba and I fought, Naruto explained. I activated a jutsu that would record everything Kyuubi saw onto a scroll and sent him after the traitor. Godime nodded approvingly. This is good evidence, but we're going to need more. She looked up to the vessel's questioning look. This could be easily forged with a henge, but backed with more, we could have a case. Naruto smiled foxily, Kyuubi matching with an actual fox grin. Then we'll find some more evidence. Naruto was slightly surprised as he smelled the all-too-familiar scent of inari sushi as he entered the steakhouse. The sweet scent glided past his nose, enticing him to follow, but he stubbornly declined. He had his addiction and it was ramen and nothing else. He wasn't the type of person to cheat on his all-awesome ramen like that. Kyubi, on the other hand, was another story. An old saying, catnip is to cats as inari zushi is to foxes, drifted through the vessel's mind. Knowing this, Naruto worriedly looked down at his tenant who had a dazed look to his eyes and drool dripping to the floor. The vessel quickly see most of his supply of chakra going to the fox demon's body, causing it to slump tiredly. It still breathed, but looked exhausted and sullen. Naruto could hear the wordless cries of Kyubi to let him have just the littlest bit of inari zushi, but he knew better. Ignoring these silent cries, Naruto flashed a foxy smile as the waitress handed him a menu and led him to a booth. The vessel sat, setting Kyubi's tired body in the seat across from him, and lazily flipped through the menu, idly pondering what to order, other than at least one box of inari zushi to use as blackmail to get a few new justu later. He blinked as a lazy, troublesome, caught his pointed ear. He straightened from his slouched position, annoyed that he couldn't quite see over the booth even then, but eventually peered over the seat to the next booth over. He was surprised to see a spitting image of the infamous Inoshika Cho group, though younger. But how odd it was, to see that the Ino part of the group was definitely female. How troublesome, said one of the group, one of which Naruto decided was from the Shika side of the spectrum. It's pretty stupid to spy on someone when you have no spying skills. Yes, he was definitely a Nara. Who said I was trying to be sneaky, Naruto said with a vulpine grin. The rest of the group was looking at him now as he leaned on the back of his seat to look over the booth. But you don't deny you were spying, the Nara said. He peered at Naruto for a long moment before sighing. You're annoying. The vessel shrugged, obviously not caring. The Cho of the group gazed at Naruto as he devoured his chips, obviously agreeing with his friend. The Ino looked broken between sides. Their so-called conversation was short, however, as the Ino Shika Cho's food arrived and Naruto's waitress came to take his order. As a final word, Naruto merely turned and plopped onto his bum to sit in his seat the proper way. The vessel was happily opening the door of the late Yondaim's estate a few days later, Kyubi grudgingly following. His blackmailing plan with the inari zushi had been an amazing success, and he had gotten a few good justu from it. He looked about his father's house with pride. Though the fact Yondaime was his father was not new to him, the fact he was actually living in a house that he had inherited from his father was. And boy, was it cool. It was giant, filled with scrolls, books, and interesting weapons. Though it was a house, it wasn't quite a home just yet, but Naruto was working on it. He stayed up late through the night, reading scrolls or experimenting with minor justu, when in the earliest hours of the morning, Kyubi, sitting in his lap, perked up. Kittling. Lower thine weights and gather thine supplies. A battle nears, the fox demon said ominously as his nose twitched, testing the air. Naruto nodded, removed his vest, pulled off his shirt, and hefted off the weights that lay beneath. Though he lowered them and the weighted vest to the floor carefully, the wood cracked and groaned dangerously from the weight even with the gentle descent. He retreated into a room, but was back a moment later wearing arm guards and no doubt light shinobi armor he had acquired in his travels under his shirt. He carried a supplies belt, filled to the brim with smoke bombs, explosive tags, and even soldier pills just in case, along with a full kunai and shuriken holsters, both of which he put on. Naruto quickly paced away once again, retrieving a smaller, odd-looking as the knives and kunai handles stuck from the top, weapon holster and pair of gloves from the kitchen. The vessel suspiciously asked Kyubi how they had gotten in the kitchen of all things, and he could practically see the fox scuffing its feet on its caged floor and averting his eyes. Slipping the black metal-plated gloves into his pocket, the vessel assisted his tenant's body in strapping on the holster. And not a second too soon, as the ground quaked beneath them, causing many scrolls and items to crash to the floor in the house. Kyubi jumped up to Naruto's shoulder, and with a seal, they puffed away. Naruto and Kyubi puffed back into existence in the lobby of Hokage Tower, which looked as though a tornado had flown through. Oddly enough, Godime was there and not in her office, bellowing orders. The vessel made his way to her via ceiling, it was much too crowded below, and hopped down next to her. Soon it seemed unsurprised. What's going on? Foolish Kittling, I told thee before. A battle. We're being attacked. We think it's the missing Nin organization King of the Whites was paying. They're probably pissed that we cut off their income, Sunad answered quickly, reading a report that was handed to her. She handed it to a person and gave them an order Naruto didn't make out. I just sent most of our most powerful or destructive ninja to the east wall, Godime answered his unasked question. The heaviest of the attack is on that wall, so I need ninja that can take out many enemies at once. Team Asuma have been assigned there. Tsunade paused to sign a paper. The Ino Shika Cho. Tsunade nodded. Ino, Shikamaru, and Chuji, she said, managing to produce an exasperated sigh between frantically signing papers. They have yet to successfully finish a mission and I don't want them flaking out on the village now. Get over there, take out as many enemies as possible and make sure Team Asuma does too. With a nod, the vessel made a seal and puffed away once again. When Naruto arrived at the east wall, that was now a battlefield, it was eerily silent. The enemy appeared as if they retreated for the moment, and, since no one actively protected the wall at the moment, Naruto guessed it was being fortified from the inside, if the calling commands of workers on the other side meant anything. Many both Konoha and missing Nin, lay scattered about, rather Everything was dully illuminated by the sliver of a moon overhead, making all objects look black, white, and the miles of gray in between. Kyuubi's tail twitched slightly and both the fox and Naruto seemingly disappeared, they ran so fast. With a nonchalant sniff, Naruto caught the scent of one of the Ino Shika Cho and proceeded to follow it through the tree tops. He finally found them, after many ninja along the way, huddled in a small clearing, dirty and bruised but relatively unscathed. The team tense. Chuji stepped to the front in a defensive way as Naruto hopped from the canopy to the forest floor, but they visibly relaxed as they saw his headband. You're the backup. How troublesome. Kyuubi, on Naruto's shoulder, flicked his tail, snorted and looked to the trees. Whatever. It's not safe here, we need to leave. A wooden kunai silently flew out from the undergrowth to the canopy and for the second time that battle the sea of a ninja dropped to the ground. A kitsune bunshin stepped into the undergrowth, looking awkward. Geez, these guys just dropped like flies. With that, the bunshin popped into non-existence. It had proved its point and now the Ino Shika Cho were definitely ready to move. They took to the trees. We need to find another safe spot, Shikamaru stated, looking about lazily for a potential area as they ran. Chuji made an approving noise around the quiet munching of his chips. What do you mean? Our mission is to eliminate as many of the enemy as possible. Naruto asked with a frown, as he looked behind them. They were going in the opposite direction of the enemy, according to Kyuubi's nose. Ino scoffed, in that ditzy arrogant girl sort of way. Stupid. Out of all of the rookie 9, ours is the weakest team. Even if we work with a strategy, Ino shot a glare at Shikamaru, who looked away and muttered something, we always turn out the losers. Ino's wishing to be on Sasuke-kun's team went unsaid. From what I've heard, your team has never successfully completed a mission, D rank or otherwise. How do you know you're losers if you never try in the first place? Team Asuma didn't answer, Ino and Shikamaru looking away as Chuji gave a shrug as he devoured a chip. Naruto sighed in an irritated way, and Kyuubi's nose twitched, eyes narrowing. Jumping to the front of the group, the vessel stopped, causing the group to halt. If you just tried to complete a mission, it would be less troublesome in the end. We're going back and we're going to complete our mission. And who gave you command of this team? Ino said doubtfully. Godime. And she told me to get you to do your mission, even if it means kicking you in the ass to do it. The team frowned in disapproval until a crash came through the trees behind them. Naruto's eyes widened as a large group of nin blocked their escape. He had failed to sense these nin and failed to notice Kyuubi's warning. Foolish kittling, pay attention. The enemy, either incredibly strong or incredibly sneaky, tensed, drawing kunai and preparing justu, but never produced an attack. It was their turn to be surprised as an odd sound hurled through the undergrowth. Before they could react, this proved they were merely very sneaky. The enemy was S's twin, Gatsuga. S tore through them. As the attack stopped, Kiba and Akamaru stood before them grinning wolfishly, albeit, splattered in B. Naruto smiled, glad to see someone familiar, leapt over to Kiba's branch, and greeted him roughly. Kiba, the vessel said with a large, foxy smile. Didn't expect to see a weakling mutt like you here. Want to talk? Fox spit, the dog nin joked back. Naruto was silent, only for a moment. He had never quite gotten over being called demon spit so many times in his youth. But after a short moment he smiled again, he knew Kiba meant well. Kyuubi, however, hissed laughter in a foxish way at the irony. Kiba continued, "You need any help here? Figured you would. Could smell ya with these weaklings a mile away." Ino went into a silent rage, whether from being called weak or agreeing with him, they didn't know. "Nah," Naruto replied, without hesitation. "We can win this." Kyuubi yipped in agreement. The dog Nin and his partner laughed heartily. "What's our position?" Naruto asked more seriously now. Kiba slowly sobered from his laughing fit. "The enemy's first wave retreated an hour ago and they've been regrouping since we gave them a good beating." Kiba grinned widely at this. "They've sent enemy scouts out, mostly ninja, but they're relatively easy to take out. Allied scouts suspect the gathering reinforcements." The dog Nin's wide grin shrank quickly, though, as another thought came to him. "But watch your back, Naruto. I scented Uchiha earlier, when the enemy first attacked. There were a lot of enemy scents near him and very few Konoha nin. Figured the stubborn bastard would be too high and mighty to radio for help and went to go save his sorry Uchiha ass. When I got there, he was gone." Kiba paused, frowning, then continued. "There was low to be around. But the kunai were Uchihas. I could smell it." Naruto, along with Shikamaru and Chuji, frowned deeply, while Ino looked on in horror. Sasuke-kun would never do such a thing. Ignoring her, Naruto looked to Kyuubi on his shoulder. "Tenko." Kyuubi nodded, and leapt away through the trees. After a few minutes of gathering information from Kiba, such as where Sasuke's scent led to, the vessel received word from his tenant. "The dog speaks truth. The traitor's scent leads away to the enemy's post. Mine eyes can see the smoke from their camp," stated Kyuubi solemnly from within Naruto's mind. While the fox demon's body was far away, his soul and mind was still within his jailer's navel. Naruto cursed aloud. "And this was the noblest ninja of all," the vessel said sarcastically. Shikamaru, recognizing the quote, snorted at the way Naruto morbidly twisted it to the situation. However, Naruto smiled. "But who cares? If the bastard wants to run away and hide behind an army, and drag him back to Konoha." While Team Asuma looked disbelieving, Kiba and Akamaru laughed loudly. "Of course. Let's kick some ninja ass." Akamaru uttered a deep bark at this. "Gather together all the Konoha nin you can and take them to the wall. We need to be ready for the next wave. We'll catch up in a bit." The dog nins nodded enthusiastically and bounded off. The vessel turned back to his team. "So, you guys ready to fight?" "Not really," Chuji as he popped a potato chip in his mouth. After a moment, Ino spoke up. "I think we should go with him," she said, backing away from her team to stand by Naruto's side. The vessel blinked, not expecting a girl to go into battle so willingly. "It's too troublesome, we'd get Konoha will probably win anyway," retorted Shikamaru. Chuji stood off, looking indecisive. While Ino was generally correct, he couldn't leave his friend so quickly. "And what if Konoha doesn't win?" she continued. "Then we run away. We aren't missing nin if the village we defect from doesn't exist." "That which does not KU, will undoubtedly try again," interrupted Naruto. "The enemy is out for revenge. They won't stop till every member of Konoha is 6 feet under and pushing up daisies." Shikamaru hesitated, uncertain. "We should go, Shikamaru. We'd be worse than Sasuke if we just left now." Chuji finally spoke up, moving to stand beside the vessel and mind nin. The shadow nin paused, mentally debating the possibilities as he stood before them before sighing. "You're all so troublesome. Fine, we'll fight, but we need to come up with a plan." Way ahead of Ya, Naruto said with a foxish grin as he pulled small pills eerily similar to soldier pills from his utility belt. The battlefield was ghostly quiet as the Konoha nin silently prepared themselves for the upcoming battle. The pale beginnings of false dawn began creep over the horizon, lightening the wall of Konoha in pale grays and pastels. A large section of the forest around the wall of Konoha had been cleared with the last wave. They had been coming and going all night in small amounts, slowly sapping Konoha's strength, leaving the ninja open and visible to the world. According to the scouts, the enemy had, in a weak display of strategy, sent most of their ninja in the repeat waves, obviously expecting Konoha to fall sooner. All that was left now was a few samurai and various ranked missing nin. Well, okay, hundreds of samurai and various ranked missing nin. Even with the relative weakness of samurai, the Konoha nin were weak from the articles, and with the number of hands advancing, traps and sneak attacks would have been useless. Surely an all-out battle was about to ensue. The Ino Shikacho stood off from the main group a ways, carefully holding the little pills offered to them by Naruto. Said vessel and his partner were absent, supplying more of the pills to various Konoha ninja, whom obviously didn't know of the Kyuubi. The ones that did flat out refused to even acknowledge the vessel's presence. They silently thought back to how Naruto explained battle tactics, explained how the pills were souped-up soldier pills, of his own design, and how they would give a huge temporary kick to your Justuan chakra. Apart from extreme exhaustion afterwards, they were harmless, being made of strong herbs and natural steroids. But even as the Konoha ninja prepared and reinforced the wall, the enemy was advancing. The shining armor of samurai and the quick, darting forms of ninja slowly rose over the hill, solemnly marching to battle. As the ends of the army's lines broke over the hill, Naruto spotted a lone figure behind them, standing dark and smug. His keen eyes made out a few details, and Kyuubi snarled through his teeth. Uchiha Sasuke, standing behind the army to watch Konoha's destruction like the smug bastard he was. All down the line of Konoha ninja, team captains called out warning. The ninja braced themselves, those supplied with pills quickly swallowed them. Naruto, rejoining his team, silently pulled his black gloves from his pocket and slipped them on. The metal plates attached to the dark fabric seemed to melt and reform into cruel-looking talons over already clawish nails on Naruto's hands. Kyuubi, at his jailer's feet, nimbly twisted and clutched a few small, ordinary-looking knives in his teeth from the odd kunai pouch strapped to his back leg. Regardless to the near-overwhelming boost of chakra, the Ino Shikacho looked doubtful as they gazed at the advancing army. Their numbers were overwhelming. "We're outnumbered," Ino stated fearfully. "This wave's a lot bigger than all the other ones," Chuji stated blandly, a bit appalled by the sheer numbers. "Don't worry. Just stick to the strategy. Split them down the middle, I'll keep the path clear, and we go get Sasuke," Naruto replied calmly. Shikamaru nodded, but frowned. "It's a good strategy, but with a very low success rate. Very troublesome. Don't worry. It'll work, I promise," Naruto said with a foxy grin. The team looked at him disbelievingly. The vessel seemed to pout for a moment, as Kyuubi mentally laughed at him, until he spotted Kiba not far off, with his own temporary team. He looked antsy, ready to jump into the fray as Naruto's pills took effect. "Our common guys. Be like Kiba over there." He gestured to the dog Nin and his partner, who was snarling with a wolfish grin as the enemy advanced. "Don't think of it as being outnumbered, think of it as unlimited target selection." Though the team didn't exactly laugh at this, it seemed to break the tension and their attention turned to the enemy a little more readily this time. At last, as the Konoha Nin rushed forward in unison to meet their enemy, many merely began to hack and throw around Justu in a mad attempt to KO as many of the enemy before they met exhaustion. The Ino Shikacho, Naruto, and Kiba, however, hardly moved from the wall and kept the distance from the army. They did, however, meet at the estimated middle of the enemy's mass and began their plan. "Kijimane no Jutsu!" cried out Shikamaru in a very un-Shikamaru-type way. Immediately his shadow came to life in the dim light, stretching beyond its normal length across the battlefield to easily capture a huge group of the enemy in its vice. The samurai, and even a few low-ranking ninja dumb enough not to get out of the way, struggled but it was futile. Their free comrades around them failed to notice their plight or chose to ignore it as they were rather busy dying. Now Chuji stepped up next to Shikamaru, who, with the pill's effect, effortlessly held down the masses. Buban Baika no Jutsu. His arm grew to monstrous proportions, and with a sweeping motion, sent many of the captured enemy, along with many of their comrades, flying through the air. The attack had left a large dent in the front of the opposing army. Ino, standing behind them, ran to the front. Shintention no Jutsu. Her body slumped to the ground, and her teammates slowed her fall. The enemy was beginning to notice this small band of ninja K off their comrades and advanced to attack. Shikamaru and Chuji fended them off with kunai and minor jutsu to protect Ino's body. The doggish partners anxiously waited for the mind nin to awaken, their signal to attack. While the pills had upped Ino's efficiency and speed to preform the jutsu, it would still take a while to switch through so many B. Slowly, a trend formed as the enemy along the middle of the army began to turn on themselves and K their comrades. Meanwhile, Naruto and Kyuubi darted off to help disorganize the flanks of the army to aid their fellow ninja. Kyuubi sprinted forward, ran up Naruto's back, and leapt high into the air. The fox demon twisted, letting the knives in his jaw fly up. Naruto turned away from the army and performed the jutsu silently, for he knew Sasuke was watching his every move from far away, and the knives were engulfed in red chakra. While when they had first been thrown they had been tiny and insignificant, they grew as they fell, until they came crashing down to deep into the earth, their size taller than that of Hokage Tower. Satisfied, Kyuubi fell back onto Naruto's waiting shoulder and they sprinted back to their little band of heroes. The vessel prepared himself as he saw Kiba preform a huge twin, Gatsuga, with Akamaru. As the doggish partners leapt out of the line of fire, Naruto leapt forward into the air and twisted his taloned hand back. With a furious, kitsune claw, his hand surged forward, chakra-charged claws first, wide path to the other side. Naruto smiled at his handiwork as gravity pulled him back to Earth. Konoha had a fighting chance now. Naruto descended, carefully snatched up the waiting Kyuubi, and ran after his friends who were already making their way down the newly made path. The army, however, began to close into the sides, shrinking the gap. The vessel desperately threw his taloned hands together to create seals. Kitsune Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. His own small army of foxes sprang into existence, instantly attacking the enemy and pushing them back. The team finally made it to the other side of the army, spotting Sasuke not far off. The traitor looked on in horror as the team advanced toward him, muscles tensing as he was about to spring into a run. And the sun finally rose over the horizon. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.